Oh, hi. My name is Landon Huber, and I'm an illustrator, a musician, and a comic book artist. I also do surrealist painting. And welcome to my 7th art process video. Lucky 7. In this video, I will be doing an illustration in pen and ink, a black and white line drawing using mostly a Winsor Newton Series 7 brush as my main inking tool, with Noodler's Heart of Darkness black ink on a sheet of 11 by 17 300 series Strathmore bristle. The way I will be accomplishing this piece is by first starting with a small thumbnail sketch, then projecting that thumbnail sketch onto the bristle to accomplish the overall layout, then going in and doing a fairly tight job on the pencils, and last but not least, finishing off with the inking. Today's illustration is actually a commission I received, and the subject matter was right up my alley. Today's illustration will be Frankenstein Versus The Mummy. As soon as I got this commission, I knew it was going to be a fun one. And, as well, an interesting challenge. And I simply love the classic Universal monsters. But I couldn't do any illustration justice without first putting my own creative spin on it. And so now, without any further ado, let's begin. So now this is really where the penciling process begins. Up until this point, it was mostly just laying in the composition that I had worked out in my thumbnail. And the thumbnail is great because at that small size, it allows you just to see the overall shapes of how everything's going together, so that you can get the flow. But then everything has to be sorted out and detailed. I usually like to figure out what I'm doing in pencil first pretty well. In penciling, it allows you the freedom to erase when you need to, so rather than having a lot of white paint all over my paper, I think it's just a little bit easier to work it out in pencil first. Some people are so good though, they don't need to do that. They just, maybe at this point they could already start inking, but it's not the way I work. So as I'm working, I'm just defining where the overall shapes and shadows and the rocks in the ground. I'm using hatching to express movement and a overall gray value down there. There'll be areas where the grays blend into blacks. That'll be more sorted out in the inking. In the penciling, I'm trying to get the overall flow and the energy. And if you try to draw too slow, then sometimes the energy is lost. So it is sometimes better to just throw it. Many times it's better to do it that way. So I'm starting light, and then as I go, I'm just building it in darker. And the way I'm seeing it is this shadow. There's like the light from the moon is hitting on Frankenstein's left, on our right, and then kind of casting that shadow. His face is creating a cast shadow which falls down his body and onto his jacket. Cast shadows are a powerful thing to convey light. But ultimately, everything you do should really be in service of conveying light. And that's something I'm always working on, because this image here, it's not, I don't have a reference picture I'm looking at. I'm creating it from the ground up. And even the thumbnail I originally did, that was just an idea in my head, and then I build the idea piece by piece. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to simplify. Even though my art tends to look pretty detailed and I love drawing trees and wood. It's one of my favorite things to draw. Another thing I like to do in general is to keep a feeling of a flow. Like, I want to create the feeling that it's late at night, the wind's blowing through, there's smoke, there's an atmosphere. There's foliage, It's important to me to give a sense of place, even if it's just a suggestion. And these lines are all, again, serving to create a flow or a movement. Bit by bit, detailing, getting more specific as I build on layer by layer. Keeping in mind the parts that when I ink later will be grayish, and then there's going to be other parts which are going to be more blackish. That creates a separation that you want to try to maintain. Filling out more of the detail on the ground. And at this point, the image is really starting to come together, and as the more you work on it, the more you will see it come together, and then your brain starts filling in the pieces and the holes. Until you're eventually happy with it. I'm almost there now. At least in the penciling. Figuring out the areas I want to be more black. I like to have grays and going into blacks, creating a sense of value even though I'm just doing it in pencil. In painting, you'll hear in many other places that value is one of the most important things. Value is very valuable when making good art. And that is true. Some people don't like to use these mechanical erasers, but I love them. And even though, you know, to most people, they might look at this and say, you're already done. still working out the detail even at this point. Trying to push it one step further. And it is true, you have to be mindful of pushing too far. But that's the ultimate trick in art, is making that final choice. It's really a choice of balance. And everything you do is either adding to the balance or it's taking away. So now that the penciling is finished, I'm just using my rolled up kneaded eraser there to just hit some of the areas where I put a bit too much graphite. It's going to make it difficult in the inking. I'm not really going over the whole thing, just some of those areas that were a bit too heavy. Start inking. As you can see, really early on in the process, I already smudged over my signature there. But I'll go back and fix that later with whiteout. It's good to not only be thinking of what you're doing with the black, but you also have to think negatively in a way. Although usually it's not a good thing to think negatively in your life, but sometimes in art you have to. What I mean is, instead of paying only attention to what you're putting down with black, thinking of positive shapes, you also have to be thinking of what is the white doing now. It's kind of like flipping your brain, like one of those old photographs. You can look at the negative. You kind of have to do that with your brain. I chose to make this art on a rough vellum paper. With bristlecboard, it pretty much comes in either smooth or vellum. And I chose the rough one because I wanted to get some of those effects that the rough paper can give you. When you kind of lightly go over and it breaks up the line, gives you an interesting texture. Also, I knew there was going to be some dry brushing later on. More lines you lay down right next to each other, the darker it's going to get. I want to create that feeling of movement in the line work. Right under the collar of the jacket there. Or is it called a lapel? It's darker. Make it look like it's popping off a little bit. So I'm just bit by bit building up value and movement. Trying to make my lines express movement. Be places on his stomach where it kind of looked like it was sewn together. Trying to suggest that. It is Frankenstein after all. Branches falling down, kind of curling around, making a bit of a border. To me, the most important thing is to create a flow with the shapes. It's not even about something just looking realistic. How can you bend something to create something that's better than real life in a way? It's good to learn from real life, but then you have to be able to bend it to your will to create something even better. these work is you have the big trunk and then smaller mid-sized limbs that come off the trunk, and then those splinter off into smaller branches, and then those splinter off into even smaller ones, so it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Right, that back hand of the mummy there. Again, I'm just trying to create a flow, like make it look like it's moving. I don't want my art to look dead, I want it to look alive. Even though the characters are pretty much dead. They're more like living dead. So for the background there, I'm really just suggesting it. I wanted to have, again, a flow to it. I didn't want to draw the eye to the background too much. I wanted it to balance somewhat with the rest of the picture, so I just left it more as a suggestion. Hills and some kind of an old cottage or house, spooky part of Transylvania somewhere. Keeping my line work very light on the moon. More mountains receding into the background. Just suggested with this fading line work. Now, as you can see, I'm using this dry brush just to go in and gray out a lot of these little areas ever so slightly. Trying to kill some of the white. Dry brushing works really well over this vellum surface. Getting close to being finished now, as I erase pencil. Sometimes it's necessary, even after you erase, go in and touch up some of the inks with now lightened. I've chosen to use a quill pen for this. And now, at last, it's finally completed. What a haunting image indeed. I am very happy with how it came out. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Man, I just love spooky things. Werewolves, mummies, monsters, vampires, creatures of the night, the frightful ghouls of legends and nightmares. Without them, what would life be like? Pretty boring, wouldn't you agree? Well, hopefully my commissioner likes the way it came out. And hopefully, you will too. Let's put him in the finished pile. For more information about me, for links to my other artworks, or if you want a commission, please read the description below. And thank you for watching. Until next time, always remember, be creative. Bye for now. Ha 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 ha!